Okay, so I came here to talk about from communications to conversations, because I think this is the big leap that we're making at the moment. And so some of you might remember this. It was a little piece of genius of its time. You could talk anywhere, it would understand what you were saying, it would do things for you. It became very good at being an instructable. You could tell it things, it was a great input device. But what it turned out to not be very good at is having conversations. It could never hold context. There was a thing called long-term, short-term memory. So if you told it something a while ago, it wouldn't really remember. And it was really difficult to figure out, if you were come to France, you had one of these on the table and you go, hey, what train is leaving from here, or how do I get back to the airport? You would have no idea what you're talking about. So it was very hard to discover your local French service. And so this thing came along, ChatGPT, and I like to think about this as being kind of a precursor to this, which is everyone has a plan until they get a punch in the face. Mike Tyson, right? So you've got all these great plans about how you're going to use all these AI technologies. ChatGPT comes along, gives you a good kick in the nonies, as we say in Ireland, and all of a sudden you are in a new plan. You've got to change an awful lot of things to start working. So you might have seen this. I literally picked this at random from the internet as an example of an interface where you've just been in a meeting, you've asked, hey, I'm in a sales meeting, what likely objections am I going to get in this sales meeting? And it's very handily given you a couple of things to be concerned about. You might raise them during your conversation. Very easy to see that this might now get populated by, a picture of the product you're trying to sell, or maybe the part of the contract that someone is interested in. But fundamentally, this is a new UI. Okay? There's no drop boxes, there's no kind of pictures that you're going to manipulate around flowcharts. This is a new UI. So this is why it's called Netscape Moment for AI. And one of the things I'd like to draw your attention to is that at the top here, this here is the example of moving into it's not a new web store, it's a new API. So it's calling up a new service. So now you're calling services into this new UI, and that's going to get very exciting. So what we're saying is that conversational AI, although it's had a couple of misstarts, a couple of miss kind of firings, it's directionally correct. So when you see that people were so willing to use the Amazon device on their desktop, they were so willing to engage with it, everyone really wanted it to work, and what that showed is that people want a new way of interacting with technology. We were just a little bit behind in our capability of delivering it. Now, forgive me for the size of this, but so what we're, the kind of grand kind of narrative here is we're moving from just connecting the channels to connecting what's happening in the channels. So if you're in a Zoom meeting and you're getting your to-dos, or you said you do that, or what documents are we referring to, or can you book that meeting, the AI is picking that out of the conversation and pushing it through other channels, and now we're connecting to what's happening in the conversations. So anything that you're able to learn from a conversation or pick out of a conversation, that's going to have second and third order effects. So for instance, the one I like is, you're in all these conversations over your Zoom, your company's all working through Zoom, right? Why are all the meetings with Paul, where Paul is the chair of that meeting, just marked a little bit lower by everybody? How come Dan doesn't speak as much in meetings that Paul is chairing? How come it's my voice that takes up 30% of every meeting time? It's like, these are all analytics that are going to become available to us, and we're not fully aware yet of how that's going to pan out, what the next order effects of that are, but they're going to be very big effects, in my opinion. So the second thing I'd like to draw your attention to is that LLMs, for all the talk of what they can do and what they can't do, they're really good disambiguators. They're really good at figuring out what is this conversation about. And that was the big problem at the front of your Amazon device. It couldn't figure out what this was about. Now there's follow-on things from that, but that's one job it's doing really, really well. And then there was that discovery process we had. Remember, we couldn't find that French railway. LLMs are going to be really good at discovering third-party services. They're going to get really good at it. Now, I don't know how it's going to pan out, but I feel like it's going to be something like approved LLMs, like things, approved services that you can pull and call up. There'll be ones that are discoverable, but I think there'll be another category, which is ones that are made up on the fly. I think there'll be dynamic integrations that occur through LLMs. And that's both really, really interesting and really, really kind of scary at the end of the day. The example I gave there, and even like in the week that this slide has been worked on, text first, right? That was the slide. So in the week that's just gone by, we've all had updates pushed to our chat GPTs, and now we're able to take pictures, upload pictures. So you can point a picture at a puzzle and say, how do I solve this? You could take a picture of a game and go, what's my best next move? And it will tell you. So it's more than just, I think, visual, what's this object? Can you describe them in a video feed? I think a lot more is going to happen from that. And something's happening here about the search query. So we were kind of dealing in, like, I'd like to find this. But what if your description was, hey, I'm going to Paris, I'm arriving on this date, I'd kind of like to see the following things. Can you organize a schedule for me? I'd also like to see some interesting things. I'll leave it up to you. And it generates a prompt chain and pushes it through various services. That prompt chain is now the thing that's getting, that prompt and prompt chain is what's getting pushed through a series of technologies and services. And so what I think another kind of thesis here is the intelligent assistant becomes the kind of core interface for it. That's how we experience the next UX. So we're all sitting in our jobs. Every single person in the organization will have some form of co-pilot. Now, it was really interesting this morning. There was a couple of things said, and I'll kind of reach them later on, but I think co-pilots are important. So one of the kind of core parts of this infrastructure architecture is that, you know, your NLU is picking out intents, it's trying to figure out what's going on. Your large language model might be picking out things like best reply or best text to reply with, and you have a dialogue manager of some sort, which is a rules engine. You work all these three together to kind of keep the LLM in control, right? You don't kind of let it go free. Not in the enterprise, you just have to have some form of control. And so one of the things I said at the end of the panel last time was, earlier in the day, was that I believe that custom LLMs are going to be the thing. So every company will have an LLM. It'll be a custom LLM. It'll be trained on the conversations that happen in their organization. They'll host it themselves somewhere. It'll be their data. And all the other data that's in relation to those meetings gets pulled into the LLM. So you can tell, hey, what kind of documents does Paul tend to refer to? What kind of topics and conversation does Paul refer to? All these things are going to be mapped. And so there's a little bit more to the diagram that gets added. You've got all the channels added, and then you've got all your knowledge bases in the company added. It's a little bit more complexity. Uh-oh. I'm not technical. I feel a bit lost. I've got a vector database. I've got storage. I've got microservices. I've got more than one model. I've got many models. Oh my God, I've got to call up all the different models. I now need some form of ML ops, LLM ops. These are large language model ops and machine learning ops, and all these have to work together. Okay, I can deal with that. Now I'm in the enterprise. I need reporting on all this stuff. What's happening in those apps? Are they delivering meetings, sales? Oh my God, I don't know what's happening. It's got to be populated on the front end, so how's it showing up for the user? Like the co-pilot, it's got to be brought into that. It's got to have full security all the way down, like all the way down, all the way through the models, all the way through all the versioning, yada yada, right, all the way at the end. I put full administration on all of that. I need full auditing on all of that. I also need a whole set of tools to help me navigate and work through all that. Point being, this is not easy, okay? To do this and harness this stuff. I was saying this gets complicated. And you might see this at the front end as, oh, that's a really nice summary the agent's getting. Oh, that's a really nice summary of the meeting. That's kind of useful. You just built all of that to deliver a summary. You're out of your mind. Right? So there's a little bit of complexity going on here, but you need a vision of how everything changes if you can do all this stuff. And I know there's a lot of people here from telco and CPaaS, so there's a kind of point to this. Smarter people than mine had a much simpler diagram. I just wanted to say, people who actually know what they're talking about can really make it simple. But practical way of making it work, though, that's a lot more complicated. Now, Webio, if you've looked us up somewhere, you'll know that we've won a lot of awards for AI ethics, best use of customer service, best use of AI in customer service, best use of technology in the field we're in. We're very narrow in what we've done, but we've learned some things. So I'm just going to go through the learnings, because that's hopefully what we're here today. So information is matched, interactions are enabled, and then transactions are made. So if I say, when is my next bill due? And I go, oh, it's the end of the week. Okay, I need to look that up in your account, so I need to open your account. So that's an account-based interaction, that's an authorization. I might need to talk to someone about that for a second, and then I might need to just change my card or change the account that I'm going to pay that money out of. I've got to transact. If that really happens easily, I go, that was all kind of neat. But actually, you need access to a lot of different systems for that simple conversation to happen, and that's not easy. But you need all of that in place to release the value. The LLMs, we believe, ultimately, they're all going to be open source models that you need to just be able to customize them and train them. And it's not one LLM, it's going to be lots of them. So part of the architecture is you need to have that large language model ops. You need to be able to track your model accuracy, your intent fit, the outcomes they're having, and be able to train all your language models so that you've custom data and custom inputs, because people call things in different contexts. And you basically need to have your own models, right? Because you've seen now on the diagram all the things that have to happen, how you're traveling through a whole architecture, that journey has to be really, really fast, because the one thing users won't put up with is latency. So if you're in a conversation and it doesn't pop up straight away with, this is what's going on, this is what you should do, these are the things what they're concerned about, if that doesn't happen like pretty nearly instantly, the user experience is such that they just turn it off. They just won't use it. And you'll find if you haven't architected it correctly as well, watch your Amazon bills go through the roof and Jeff Bezos buy another boat. So how it scales is going to be really important. So you have to build as if you're going to win. That's what you have to do, and that's why you put in all the time and effort to build your microservices infrastructure. Some of the problems that you see, again, in real life, you go into companies and you talk up this big game, right? Yeah, but we don't have an API for that, and we don't have access to the people who do the API. We do have an API, but we'll be 7 months before we get to this project, so, take a seat. So while you might be ready to go, customers are inevitably not ready with their data, and you need a plan for how you're going to deal with that. The joke relating to the earlier part of the day about the carriers and their big, huge Excel sheets, that's everywhere. Right? Excel sheets are everywhere, so you have to learn how to deal with them. Everyone's talking about like great prompt building, like chain of thought, chain of verification, chain of this, chain of that, tree of this, tree of that. Every week, every month, there's some new way of building prompts and changing prompts, and so you need some way of managing for that into the future. But results vary on all these prompts with all these models. And what customers like in many contexts is consistency. So I think that the trick with generative AI is to remember the generative part. It's great at generating options. It's not great for transactions. It might not even be great for interactions. Co-pilots are great experiences, but what I'm hearing is a lot of the co-pilots are pretty generic. And so someone mentioned earlier on today that, I think it was yourself there, about people going, no, we're going to turn this off. I don't like all my data going through to this other company, like to this extent. But they're also not that useful when they're so generic. So I think the closer you're aligned to the person's role and you understand the jobs they're trying to do and how you can help them do that specific job, the more chance you have of kind of sticky, of staying there. You know, we know that they're great for copy generation, summarization, labeling, intent routing. These things are pretty well deliverable today. You just got to do a decent enough job. But I think that the difference is at the enterprise level is even if they're really great at doing this, companies want oversight. So they want to be able to go, an agent has to review it, then send it. I don't want this heading through a generative AI and then being automatically sent. I'm happy to save agent time, but I don't want this going out unviewed. And I think again, mentioned earlier, privacy. Like if you ask why enterprises aren't grabbing all this stuff and throwing it everywhere, they're going, I don't want my data going everywhere. So I don't know where this is going. I don't know what, I think the phrase in the industry is orthogonal. Like what else are they doing with my data, right? So I'll click on. So here's some further questions. I'm just going to check my time here. So here's some other questions. These are just further questions about the industry. They're kind of open. So voice interaction is still kind of, has been to date, instruction-based. Like turn off the lights, can you do this, transcribe that. It hasn't been great at the interaction, the voice, the turns in conversation. It hasn't been really great at that. So my tip is keep an eye on the ChatGPT app and how much or how many people use that app consistently in voice mode as opposed to text mode. And I think that's going to be a really early indication as to whether people are going to go this voice chat way. AI behind the IVRs should work. It's a really great positioning. I think it blows the hell out of everything that should be there. Not getting adopted. I'm not seeing it anywhere. It should work. It's a really good technology, but I'm just not seeing it happen. So if everyone's coming around going, you know, this is going to be driving IVRs, it's a really good story. I'd love to hear more. If anyone has success stories, I'm all ears. The other thing I'm hearing from just people that are trying to do voice conversational IVR stuff is it isn't driving down their overall call volumes. They still have huge call volumes to deal with. So its core case isn't working right now. And this is just kind of a caveat. Just keep your eye on it because, you know, we can fall prey to what happens in the media and what's being said, but I'm just not seeing it in practice. However, voice data carries 10x richness. It has so much more in the voice pattern itself than just the words they're saying. And with that comes the ability to know that when someone goes, can you pay that by Friday? And they go, absolutely, I'm totally on board with doing that. And you go, ooh, they're never paying that bill. Yeah, that's never happening. If you say to somebody, are you turning up for drinks tonight? Yeah, I'll probably be there. You go, yeah, I'll probably be there, correct. But pause, less than 5 seconds, or 0.5 a second, that's a no. Right? I'm not turning up later on. And it gets even more complicated in dialogue analysis, because it's probably the same in your country, but in Ireland, if you go, are you up to anything on Friday night? You go, yeah, I'm going out with my wife and we're having dinner. Oh, that'll be lovely. That's a preemptive, because I don't want you asking me to go out on Friday night. I'm not going out drinking with you. You know what happened last time I got this haircut, right? We're not going again. So language is hard, but if you can unlock it, it's got 10x the data potential. The opposite, of course, is that I do think that voice is going to be used very negatively. So voice cloning is very fast, very accurate. It works, right? So now all you're seeing is the situations where someone's managed to get your daughter's voice message and they've said, oh, great. Hey, Dad, I'm locked out. Can you send me some money so I can get a cab home? And you go, oh, yeah, sure, honey. And there's the money, right? So you're going to see a lot of social cloning, a lot of fraud issues. I do think it'll be great for avatar experiences and people saying, hey, let's be in a movie together and let's make this a digital avatar and it'll use my voice and your voice and it'll use the script from the movie that we love. There'll be loads of entertainment experiences, but I'm just a little bit soft at the moment on the enterprise. I think conversation is a natural match with the metaverse stuff. It is a natural match for AI, VR, made for one another. So I expect to see a lot of things happen in the entertainment business. But from my experience to date, nobody does customer service in the metaverse. No, that's my quote on that one. And so my CPaaS provocations. Personal assistant, if you believe the personal assistant or the co-pilot is the interface of the future, what does that change for your company? I'd stick it up on a wall and I'd say, what if? And I'd have a plan for thinking about it. Because I don't know how many people are actually thinking about it really, how disruptive it could be. Communications data, what we're saying in a conversation, and our knowledge bases are both required to drive deeply personal interactions. You need access to both. And so my unpopular opinion today is I think one of the few companies that has the assets in place to do that is Twilio. Because they made a massive investment in Segment and they've got a lot of data assets in their business. So I think they actually could do something in that space. And again, this is almost like once you're looking at LLMs and what's happening in the conversation and what the outcome of a conversation is, all that is data. So pretty much you're in another form of data business from here on in. It's just more complicated, more sophisticated. And the blocker is when you're looking at companies at scale and you're a platform, the same old problem's been there that's always been there, which is you don't understand that company to the depth and detail that you need to be able to actually craft solutions for them. So customer intimacy is, if you don't have customer intimacy with an enterprise, you don't understand like what they're trying to achieve, what their challenges are, I would say that CPaaS companies are actually poorly placed to implement at that scale. They might be able to do it with smaller companies, but I don't think they'll do it at scale companies. I think we raised this before, but like the kind of platform that we saw, the kind of end-to-end journeys that you need to be able to architect, how are you positioned to do that at scale with the sort of company that you have? What we've seen so far is many of the companies, to really get that experience, to get the good customer experience, you really need to understand those companies and also the workflows that they have. And once you understand those workflows, then you understand what other softwares you need to integrate with so that you can deliver that conversation. And what you'll find is that you're going to see industry after industry verticalizing. They'll have more and more verticals with specialist solutions. So the question might be, where do you partner, with whom, and for what reason? So strong partnering strategy is probably required. And so in the section I will now call Insider News, I'll put a little beep, 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 beep news flash here at the bottom. It's just I'm sharing because I'm kind of pretty deeply embedded in the conversational industry. Nobody's getting automated out of a job, right? Again, the headlines, going to lose millions of jobs, da-da-da-da-da. Haven't seen one instance of it yet in my experience. What's happened is, yeah, we've automated all that, now we have time to do that other stuff that we hadn't done. And the other stuff we haven't even done, we spend time on the stuff we didn't even know we had to do because it didn't even enter our to-do funnel because we were too busy doing the basic stuff. And I'll give you just a quick example. If you're in a large company and you're doing credit collections work like we do, right? It's like, when's the next payment? Okay, let's see if we can organize something, da 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 da. This is all agent time that you're taking up. And what if you got to the space where you were able to say, well, they're getting serviced with that standard stuff, but somebody said a couple of things in the conversation that leads us to think, this person may be vulnerable at this point in time. Like, my daughter is usually here minding me, and because I'm vision impaired, I'm finding it very difficult to do, oh, 1 second, vision impaired, left alone. Get this person in front of an agent. And now the agent is there saying, okay, why was your daughter leaving you alone? Oh, she's left, we had an argument. Oh, Christ, this person's really vulnerable now, right? I'd never have known that if I hadn't a person talking to another person. And now they're able to spend the time with that customer to find out everything about their messy lives. Our lives are messy. And you need people to do that discovery process. So, no one's losing their job. And the focus is that old-fashioned, and probably old-fashioned at this stage, of jobs to be done. Everyone's kind of heard of jobs to be done, right? Focus on what the job to be done is for the people that you're providing your service for, and then figure out how your AI is going to help them do that. And that will really keep you focused. You heard that all these deals with the large models, they're doing the deals with the large vendors like Amazon and Azure. Why? It's because the storage costs are so massive, the processing costs are so massive, and you're being charged for that capability. And my provocation is, I think there's something in that. Whoever's storing your data at the enterprise, whoever's storing that data, you need to have your conversations, etc., that's going to be chargeable, and it'll be chargeable at least on the basis of processing and storage that you have to provide as a service provider. LLMs need zero latency. You absolutely cannot deliver this stuff with with latency in the architecture. Voice LLMs are hard. That's why they're not working right now. Again, I'm not seeing it. If someone has seen it differently, please come up to me. But they're hard. My provocation is they won't always be. And when they're solved, they will be extremely profitable, because of the 10x information that's contained in that data, right? That means when that lock-on occurs, it will be huge, but it's still difficult to do. But because it's difficult to do, it will be profitable. Things that are easy to do are commoditized. So there's something in that. I'm not saying how to solve it, I'm just saying there's something in that. And the other thing I would say is automate the entire process. If you want to deliver value for a customer, say, I'm going to automate that entire thing for you. Not bits of it, not little bit, not little bit. Figure out how to automate the whole thing, and then they'll figure out, oh, I can get rid of that whole thing, you know? That whole thing cost me X. You're charging me Y. This makes sense. So figure out a whole process that you can automate. And here's my super, what? Well, it's perfectly legible. It's a super prompt that you can put into ChatGPT-4 to learn how to disrupt Twilio. I thought that was perfectly obvious what I was doing here. So, on that bad news, you're not needed. I have a super prompt. It will do all the work for you, okay? So there's been a bit of a joke here at the end, but however, this is how people are interacting with their systems and figuring out how to think differently. It's like, I want you to think in steps. I want you to take all of Alan's blog posts, think about the mindset that's involved there. I want you to create an argument with Paul about all the stuff he's written. I want you to have a negotiation. I want someone else to come in and summate it. And then I want you to put that as a series of questions to everything that Jeff Lawson has said on his Twilio transcripts. And I want you to tell me why that might work. And that's a really interesting exercise for an analyst to do, because it gives you, oh, hold a second, there's vulnerabilities here. Actually, they're not good at this. Actually, there is another thing that can be done. And this is where generative conversational AI really opens up opportunities. It gets you into other mental models. So My little takeaways, I'm on the 30 minutes. Customer service, as you can probably tell, is getting disrupted. Most definitely, this isn't even a question, it's getting disrupted. Conversations are what contain all the events and data that you need to do that, but getting that information is going to be hard. But internal enterprise silos will always remain because you're trying to get that information to fulfill those particular conversations. And so those co-pilots need that information to work. So it's still going to be a little bit difficult. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.